My name is Joe Krakowiak. I live on Grandview Avenue, and I really appreciate Mr. Beneke standing up here and fielding all of these questions, and I appreciate everybody coming here too. But I just hope in the future meetings that the council and the local government do a much better job at not only allowing us to communicate more effectively, but perhaps even putting a lot of this information up on the town website so that when people come here, they don't have to ask elementary questions or get things wrong or fill the vacuum with whatever they can think of instead of getting all the facts. So I think it would be a really benefit to the town if we put a lot of this information online so that people could get to it. My big concern about this, just before I go any further, I have a background in municipal finance, and what I really focused on here is the GO pledge. And I can appreciate Mr. Beneke saying that, yes, that's the change from non-recourse to recourse, but we put in all of these safeguards. Just so everybody knows, when the town gives its GO pledge, that means no matter what happens, the town's taxpayers stand behind the project. All right? So even though a lot of us aren't paying taxes through the pilot program, we are giving some subsidy. I think it would be accurate to say that the rest of the town is subsidizing this project to a certain extent. If anything goes wrong with the project, our tax money is going to make up for any shortfall. I just have 3 quick questions about that. Has there been any discussion among the advisors and among the council to make this not a GO pledge, but to structure it somewhere as perhaps a revenue bond where the town does not have to stand behind it? If PRISM feels so strongly about this, I think you could probably get them to put a little bit more up on this. And the reason I ask you about that is because I think part of the reason this whole project works with the pilots is that it's a GO pledge, which means we pay the lowest interest rates on this project to begin with. And I think that's what's a real important thing. We're already going to have a shortfall in the first few years of the project, and in the initial financing, we're actually going to be borrowing something on the order of $1.3 million to just pay interest costs and pilots originally. But my question would be, why can't we do something that absolves us from this GO pledge? That's why I think a lot of our concern today wasn't around 2 or 3 years ago, because it was non-recourse and the town's taxpayers weren't on the line like they are now. So that would be one question. Or 2 questions.
Yeah, that's actually a very complicated question. Very simply, in New Jersey, we do not have the ability as municipalities to straight up issue revenue bonds. Special assessment bonds, which I mentioned before, are still general obligation. Redevelopment area bonds that are non-recourse or not, but these bonds have to be general obligation. But I want to just mention one thing. One of the other bufferings that we put in that the council hasn't mentioned, we haven't mentioned as of yet, is that we will take an application to the local finance board to have this removed as a debt obligation from the municipality's balance sheet and have it taken off as a net obligation of the municipality once the revenue stream is established. In New Jersey, that's the way it works. It's called self-liquidating debt, as opposed to revenue bond financing, which other states allow for.
Just another question. You talk about all the safeguards before we get to the GO pledge, and you mentioned that we're going to have a first lien on the property, we meaning the town. There is a $10.5 million first mortgage on the property that PRISM took out when it acquired the property 2 years ago. How are we going to get a first lien? Is the bank really going to give up their position on that?
It's a statutory mechanism whereby the redevelopment area bond and the pilot stand in front of, just like a municipal lien, a tax lien, stand in front of the bank automatically.
So the bank doesn't have any say in that? They made the mortgage 2 years ago, and now they don't have any say in it?
That's correct. Now, I want to just say one thing. That's why we don't particularly mind having that mortgage there, because with that mortgage there, and it's a little bit complicated, but I think you'll understand and appreciate this. With that mortgage there, we're going to have a property worth $75 million, or at least investment $75 million. We're going to have to get $29 million for the property if, in the worst case scenario, comes. If we have somebody behind us with $10 million, they're going to want to make sure that we get paid so that they get paid, because they have $75 million in it. Obviously, the redeveloper will want to extract some revenues as well. So we don't really mind that, given that they've already invested $53 million and have a net equity position of 35. So that $10 million is actually helpful to us, because if the worst case scenario, the nuclear option's in play, somebody else wants to get more money than we get, and that's good.
Just my final question is, the local finance board came back a few weeks ago and asked the town for what you were saying, the nuclear option, or what was the worst case scenario of what would happen in the financing. And I have the paper here, but I can just sort of paraphrase it. What you essentially said was that in the worst case scenario, all of the money that was invested in the project would have to lose 60% of its value in order for the town to be hit. What you didn't say in the opinion was that that was never going to happen. Do you, in fact, believe that it would never, in any situation, ever happen?
Well, there's international scenarios that we can all concoct that would really cause catastrophe. We have put these benchmarks in the short term if those catastrophes occur, that the major force majeure issues, and I'm not going to get into hyperbole or conjecture, but we all know what those we lived through 9/11. Those types of events that are very difficult for markets to adjust to. So can you never say never? You never can say never. By the way, even with the non-recourse, you can never say never. And we pointed that out. However, barring that crystal balling, barring that visioning of this catastrophe, we don't believe that a $75 million investment will turn into anything less than a $29 million investment, and we'll get our money back. More importantly, there's two other factors. First, they're not going to want to lose their investment. Okay, they're going to want to keep those payments up, right? Sure. I mean, that's logic. And second, that bank behind us is wanting to extrapolate money too, and they're not going to want to lose their position. And third, somebody mentioned having a second redeveloper come in. That's possible, but we need the permission of the property owner to do that. That's another position even. So, and I mentioned that in the risk assessment. So we have these options, and all of these options mean that all of this filtering has to be done to even get to the point of discussing taxpayer involvement.
I appreciate your answer. I'm just concerned that we're actually going through a pretty worst-case scenario in this country and in New Jersey, and I'm just very concerned about that. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Bob, we had two questions back here. I think this gentleman first, then Mr. Blanton.